Okay, hello, Julia, and anyone else that happens to be watching today. We are in our second session of week 1 for DES 109, Graphic Design 1 in Mod 1, 2019. Excuse me, I had a little bit of time to actually get us set up today, so my presentation will be a little bit less hectic, hopefully. You may hear my dog bark at one point, but that's just because my daughter will be getting home. So hopefully we'll have no other interruptions and we'll just be able to get moving as, there we go. I'm just making sure I have something set up here. Okay. Oh, cancel. This is why I hate when other people use my computer. Okay, so we are going to get started today. And Julia, let me know if you have any questions throughout the presentation. You can shoot a message in the chat. Excuse me. And or if no one else comes in, feel free to unmute yourself to make your comment. That might be a little bit easier. So, okay, and here we go. So first off, we're going to do a quick review and then talk a little bit about graphic design and being a graphic designer. We'll do a demo on assignment 1. Excuse me, we'll talk a little bit about the assessment as well. So just like I said, to do a very quick review, we're just going to go over the few tips to being successful in this particular class, and I'm sure that most of this you could actually carry over into other classes as well. And since Julia was here yesterday, I'm not going to spend too much time in it. We're just going to run through them really quickly. So number 1, watch the pre-recorded lectures and do that first, and then take notes as you are watching them. That is the foundation for not only the live sessions, but also your readings. So that's going to be very helpful. It's going to give you some context for the information that you'll be getting after the fact, and will also help you while you're doing your assignment. Excuse me, watch the live sessions either by coming in or by watching the recording, and doing that before you start your work, because that is going to potentially answer questions and provide tips before you actually get your assignment started, so you don't waste a lot of time trying to figure things out that I actually went over in the live sessions. Number 3, check over the week's work before you get started. Helps you plan, especially if you folks have, part-time or even full-time jobs in addition to your schoolwork. Some of you may have families, so trying to fit in your children's activities can be difficult, or simply just your children's awake time. So just make sure that you check over the week's work, kind of get an idea of how long it's going to take you to do certain things so that you can pace yourself. Check the announcements at least every other day or so. This says 5 times, but if you check them every other day, you should be good. I like to make sure that I don't overwhelm you guys and that I include some fun things as well, so it's not all boring. I don't like to just completely flood your inbox. If you have your settings, your email settings to, have the announcements go right to your email, which is really actually the easiest thing to do. Then you don't have to go and log in specifically to look at the announcements. But that's going to be my main way to contact you guys. Do your daily checkpoints. Like I mentioned yesterday, I think it's 4 you need to do by the end of the week. Excuse me, a minimum of 4, and then everything else after that is extra credit. So, they're 3 to 5 minute videos, and they have a quick quiz, so it's really easy to just keep those, those points up. Fully participate in the discussions, because I double clicked there. The more participation we get in the discussions, the better the discussions are. The more you learn, the more other people learn from you. And it's just overall, it is a more effective and enjoyable experience. Read the assignment background information and submission instructions carefully. I cannot stress this enough. I actually changed that word carefully from yesterday's presentation, because I do want to make sure that I emphasize I need to make sure that I have the right file type so that I can view your file in Canvas, otherwise I can't grade it, and then you get a 0, and I hate doing that, especially after I know that you students have put a lot of work into an assignment. I don't want to have to 0 something out if I can't read it, if I can't look at it. Excuse me. Watch the demos and examples in class. I'm going to be doing demos every Tuesday, the step-by-step instructions of the assignments, and kind of going over a little bit of the assessment. The assignment especially, I can actually go step-by-step. So you shouldn't have any questions, but the more people that attend these sessions, the more questions will come up, and I can make sure that I even am more thorough in my explanation. Submit the work on time. Obviously, that's kind of a no-brainer. I don't like I just said, I don't like giving 0s if I don't have to, because the file type is wrong when I know that my students have done the work. But if I can't view it, I can't grade it. Same thing here. If nothing's been submitted, I can't grade it. Or if it's not submitted on time, even if the work was done absolutely perfectly, I still have to take off for late submissions, and I hate to do that too. Really, because I know that you guys put a lot of effort into it, and I don't want to, I just don't want to deduct if I don't have to. Contact the instructor if you have questions or run into problems or delays. Yes, email me, text me, message me through Canvas, call me. I am available at so many different avenues. And if you have questions, I am more than happy to go through things over the phone. I'm more than happy to log into the Zoom class from here, and we can share screens if you're having a problem on your end. I had a student do that last week. She was having trouble with her portfolio. So we logged in, no one else was in the session, so she shared her screen and we were able to figure out what the problem was. I'm more than happy to just troubleshoot, because sometimes it only takes a couple seconds. Utilize the multi-sessions, class coach, and SSC for help and feedback. Excuse me, multi-sessions, I will actually go over one more time right after this, the multi-session schedule, because the recording I had to put up yesterday was from last mod, which was like 98% the exact same information, just the dates and times were incorrect because I had an issue with the recording. So interesting way to start out the mod, but I will make sure that I go over that for anybody else that's watching this, so that they know where they can get that information too. 100-level multi-sessions, you can come visit me on Thursday afternoons, and there's also there's also a schedule that is in the announcements for other instructors as well if you can't come to mine. Another thing is too, if you have a question, or if I didn't do a critique of your particular project and you want to see it, you can actually shoot me a message. If you're unable to attend on Thursdays, you can shoot me a message and I can do a little recording for you and then post it up. And maybe your question or that particular critique will help someone else that is struggling in the class as well. So I don't mind doing that as well. Class coach is Rachel Fields this mod, and she's very happy to help out as well. Her contact information got posted yesterday, and I'll post her schedule every single week. And the SSC is also available for help in either writing or if there are tutors there, the design tutors, you can also ask them for help for your critiques. And start your week early and pace yourselves. That's kind of a reiteration of a previous step, but it is highly emphasized because sometimes, depending on the work, sometimes it can seem like a lot, or it can be overwhelming, or maybe even just what you have going on in that individual week, and I don't want everybody to get stressed out. So try to make sure you schedule things. And like I said, I apologize, my dog barking. My dog is just getting home from school. So just to go over the required lectures, there's 4 hours total. The pre-recorded session, which is just the one, it's already posted, it's 2 hours long. Goodness gracious. Watch before you do your assignments and take notes, gives you a foundation for the live sessions. And break it up if you need to, because it is it's already recorded, so you are good to go. You can do it in 20-minute increments, you can do it in 5-minute increments. It might take a while, but not a problem at all. And then the live sessions, I have 2 each week, 1 hour each, so 1 on Mondays, 1 on Tuesdays. Excuse me. On Mondays, we will be doing an overview of that coming week, we'll be going over some tips, and I'll be doing critiques. And on Tuesday, we'll be doing demos on the assignment and going over some details. Okay, so now actually before I get started in the rest of the work here, I want to actually make sure that I don't forget and go into the announcements for those of you watching now, or later actually, because Julia already saw this yesterday. Oh, there we go. This is actually not in the right view. There we go. Come on. Don't worry, all those are not there yet. Those are just resources for me. So we have in the announcements, we have the week 3 schedule, like I mentioned. This is the recording from yesterday that I posted. The 100-level multi-session schedule for Mod 1. This is the announcement that when you download this PDF, actually has a schedule. And I think I actually have it downloaded in here, but we'll put it in this folder so that it will actually download. Once you open it up, it's got a schedule for all of the different 100-level classes and their instructors and their Zoom rooms and their days and times. So like I mentioned, if you can't come to me for help for whatever reason, you can absolutely hop in any of these multi-sessions as well, and any of these instructors would be more than happy to help you. So let's go back to the presentation. So, excuse me. To start out, what is graphic design? Graphic design, we went over a very basic but very succinct definition yesterday in the live session right at the end, where graphic design is essentially creating a message and using both type and imagery in order to do it. So the art or skill of combining text and pictures for use in any visual medium for advertising, magazines, logos, etc. So here are some examples right here. We have some billboards, we have some packaging design right here, which I thought was really kind of neat when I looked up this information, because this right here is cut out. So that's a slightly different concept, but we have 2 different kinds of media here. We have the digital and we have the print. So some examples in graphic design, we have identity, like logos and branding, publications such as magazines, newspapers, and books, print advertisements, posters, billboards, like I mentioned, website graphics and elements, signs, product packaging, like over here, and just, it's all over the place. From road signs to technical schematics, from inter-office memos to reference manuals, graphic design enhances the transfer of knowledge and visual messages. I don't know how many times I have purchased something, whether it was a dresser from IKEA, my kids' swing set that we purchased, or some kind of electronics. The instruction manuals are horrible. They're missing text. Their drawings are completely confusing. I mean, even things like that, something you might not think of, are graphic design. And they're features of or examples of graphic design in play. And if these manuals were constructed properly using the design principles, or if simply the graphic designer or the person designing it was an actual graphic designer, maybe they would be a little bit more understandable. So readability and legibility is enhanced by improving the visual presentation and the layout of text. And that's a really good way of explaining it. Some other examples are education textbooks and handbooks, or handouts, entertainment such as movie posters and credits. Oh, and I have a spelling error there that I need to make sure I mark down right now so that I don't forget to change that. Websites and web design, publications such as books and magazines. Julia, can you think of any other example that maybe haven't gone over where you might actually have seen some kind of graphic design? There we go. Anything? Oh, there we go. Some books. Yep, actually, yeah. Just like regular, maybe regular fiction books or regular nonfiction books, novels, I suppose. Lots of different applications. So there are lots of different software applications as well that we're going to be actually using in this course, this mod. To start out, we have Adobe Photoshop, which is a graphics and photo editing program, obviously developed by the big and infamous Adobe, part of the Creative Suite. It's a pixel-based raster program, which allows you to create and edit original graphics. Oh my God, I got another one in there. I'm writing these down before I forget. Movie and Photoshop, because I'm always trying to improve my slides, and then when I do that, I mess up. Excuse me. So pixel-based raster program rather than vector, which we'll get into next, allows you to create and edit graphics and digital photos, used very often for photo editing and web graphics as well. Raster images are bitmap images, which contain a grid of pixels. And those pixels are essentially color information, and it is those pixels that when you say something is pixelated, that's what you're actually seeing. When something looks blurry, it's because the pixels, there is not enough information, there is not enough pixels in it to make it high quality. And I'm noticing Julia mentioned, we're going back a slide, she mentioned book covers for another example of graphic design. And yes, you are absolutely correct. Because, I mean, I know we're not supposed to judge a book by its cover, but I think we absolutely do. So moving on to Illustrator. The Illustrator program is vector-based graphics, which you use a mathematical algorithm to exponentially size your graphic, which is how you don't lose any quality, any information in it. So right over here, this left one is vector. It's obvious. I mean, excuse me, is raster. It's obviously very, very pixelated. The one on the right is vector. And notice how it's nice and sharp and clean. It's made up of points that describe an object's outline or shape. And while you use a fixed resolution in your Photoshop raster images, in Illustrator, it is not dependent on resolution, so you could make this a 1 inch by 1 inch, or you could make it a 300 foot by 300 foot, and it's still going to maintain that same crispness, that same high quality. Adobe InDesign is a desktop publishing application, so page layouts mainly, like newsletters, posters, brochures, books, and book covers. You can actually bring in images from both Photoshop and Illustrator and many, many, many other types, file types into this application. You can't modify them, most of them. You can actually create some vector images actually in InDesign, but that's essentially it. Most of the time, the images are actually linked to their primary folder, and unless you embed them actually into the InDesign file, and by linking them as opposed to embedding them in the InDesign file, it actually creates a smaller file. And if you don't believe me, try importing about 20 images into an InDesign file and embedding them all and seeing what your computer does. It freaks out because it just can't handle the load. So the basic principles of design, which Lisa Hammersheim goes into a little bit more depth in the pre-recorded lecture, but the basic elements of design are contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. And yes, you read that acronym correctly. Whether it's professional or not, the way I look at it is if you don't use the elements of design, the CRAP acronym, then your work is going to end up looking like crap. That's the way that I remember it. So to start out, we have contrast, that's the C. And ultimately, the word contrast means change. So you have a change in the way that something looks in order to bring emphasis or to make you focus on something. So change in size, color, direction, typeface, weight, patterning, texture, excuse me, all sorts of different things. And these are some examples. So we have change in size right here. We have 1, 2, 3 are exactly the same except for this guy, which is huge. We have all of these lines are all aligned aside from this one right here. We have 3 black squares and 1 yellow, 3 circles and 1 square. We have 3 squares that are aligned along the baseline, and this one, which is at an angle. Same thing, we have texture here. Dots made, or excuse me, squares made up of dots, and this one has the line. So you can see very easily in this particular image how the change in size, texture, shape, etc. draws your eye to that one particular item in that group of objects. Repetition is art, and that represents consistency within a design, makes it unified and cohesive. Excuse me, you can utilize repetition within typeface selection, size, color, leading, which leading is the spacing between lines, like this area right here. They're all used to create visual unity and harmony within your design. And here is just an example. Oh, we have a question, sure. Well, we have a question about contrast. If I were to draw a horse and color the horse brown and black and then color the background light blue, would that be a form of contrast? Yes, absolutely, because the horse is darker than the background. So let's actually, you know what, I'll bring this over real quick. This is my InDesign window, and create a new document, and I could even put that together real quick, and I can show you the difference. So if we had, oh, my tools are over on this one. There we go. Excuse me. If I have, let's say, we're going to pretend that this is your horse. The rectangles are your horse, even though we know that it's not. And let's make, oh, that was a little bit too, there we go. Let's go, ooh, that's a little too much brown. Make a dark brown and make our background a light blue. I'm actually going to get rid of those borders there. And make a light blue. You'll see how you can see the black and the brown very well against the lighter blue background. If, however, you were going to make this a navy blue or even sometimes a royal blue, it's going to be much more difficult to see. And I know that that's more like a purple. Purples and blues on screen are very difficult. So if actually, let's even go a little bit darker. There we go. That's a little bit better. So, you know, it becomes very difficult or much more difficult to see than it would be with the light blue. So that's kind of an example. And thank you for kind of pointing that out. And sometimes just the extra examples kind of helps out. Julia, would you, let's go back to repetition. Could you actually give me any example here in this layout right here, examples of repetition? While she's thinking, we'll go, excuse me, I'll actually indicate. So this is kind of, I think, like the cover of this particular brochure or magazine. So we have these, this color scheme that kind of is carried throughout. We have the yellow and the light green and the light gray of these shapes, in addition to these shapes actually working throughout the entire publication. And in addition to that, we have repetition of the font in here as well. If you drew a star and repeated it, maybe like a light pink star, yep, absolutely. And repeat it, like, for example, this light pink right here. It actually looks like this light pink was not repeated throughout the layout, but if you notice, these gentlemen's shirts, they're not really red, but they are like a light pink. So even that color, even though it wasn't repeated within the shape, it was repeated within these photographs. So kind of different ways of doing it, actually. And this is like the 4th time I've taught this course, and that's the first time I've noticed that. So, and it's amazing the things you can still pick up. The next principle of design is alignment. And alignment is super, super important in graphic design because it allows you to arrange items so that it's easy to read, and it allows you to balance it. Sometimes your image might look like it's kind of falling over, or maybe that you're missing something if it's not aligned well. It also creates a visual connection between the related elements. So we have horizontal and vertical alignment, and these two are rather confusing because the vertical is this way, but your alignment is going this way. And I know that that sounds confusing. The way I like to look at it as I'm kind of making sure that this, you know what, let me actually grab my annotation tool. I'm using these a lot these days. There we go. So I'm aligning it this way, but these are the baselines are actually are being aligned. I'm working within these lines. There we go. That's actually a better way to explain it. I'm working within those lines. Same thing here. I'm working within these lines on the left and the right to align them this way. This is probably the most confusing aspect of all the alignments, I would think. And if anyone has any questions, you can absolutely let me know, because it is a little bit confusing. Oh, going on. Oops, I didn't close that up. These are some other examples of alignment. We have aligning in the center and aligning along an edge or in the corner. And then this right here, this is it. It's funny because sometimes depending on the type you might use, or the maybe the length of the word, sometimes it might be aligned correctly. Like this one right here is the edge of the V is aligned with the left edge of all the other text. But it looks like something's a little bit missing because we have this space right here. So the word visual gets scooched over just a little bit. That's a technical term, by the way. And then it actually looks like we're getting rid of some of this space, so it almost looks, you know, we're using visual alignment. It looks like it's aligned more than it is over here. So the principle of design for P is proximity. That is placing graphics or items, elements together so that you're actually looking at them as a group, as opposed to just several random elements. So here's a before and after of a business card, where we have the name of the business and the address is together, as opposed to right over here on the left-hand side, where both aspects of the address, I mean, they're near each other, but that's not how you would actually address a letter. So it makes more sense to put it together like this. Same thing with the contact information with the phone number and the website. You place them together here. So even though this one is absolutely centered, you know, within the business card, these two items are aligned. These two items are aligned. They have a decent amount of equal space between them. This one actually looks a little bit more balanced because the items are grouped together. It makes a little bit more sense. And it kind of looks a little bit cleaner. So here's an example of using proximity. Excuse me. We have over here, we have essentially a movie poster where you have the date and some of the information all grouped together. Information about the film genre and whatnot, running time and that kind of thing is all together right here. You know, as opposed to being placed, you know, everywhere on the poster, as well as a print layout where you would have maybe items, photographs that connected with the type that was going near it. You know, we have an inset here as well that would kind of indicate that this picture is an interior shot of this outside shot. Sometimes you might even see captions in the magazine or in a newspaper that are, you know, maybe not in the picture, but maybe right on top, and you can tell that that picture is supposed to be related, excuse me, that text is supposed to be related to the picture because of its proximity to the picture. So, principles of design. Julia, could you find an example of contrast in this particular image here, this dark city poster? And I have to apologize, my throat, I've got a sore throat, so it's difficult for me to talk right now. The red light bulb going against the background, exactly. This light bulb, it's nice and bright. So that against the black background, it is very easy to see, as well as we have the contrasting bright text, both white and the pale yellow, and the stars, so you can see them very nicely. We have repetition. We have the stars over and over and over again. They're essentially the same shape. That we might have a couple, you know, this one looks a little bit more detailed, but these other smaller ones might actually also have that, and I just can't see it right now. The repetition of the font style going through the entire thing. And even these shapes, we have the rectangles of the buildings and, you know, one or two little triangles, but the geometric shapes of the buildings that's repeated throughout the little windows as well. So we have, you know, basic geometric shapes there. Alignment, everything is fairly aligned within the center. Not only the light bulb that's hanging, but the light bulb hanging kind of draws your eye right down to the text. And proximity, that was the last one. We have the credit information essentially all together right underneath the title of whether this is a book or a movie. I cannot remember off the top of my head. But this, you know, that we can tell that this particular set of information is related to the title. It's also a good example of hierarchy, which is where you would take the more important information and make it larger or more prominent in some way, and then everything else a little bit smaller. And repetition, yes, Julia, repetition is also the pale yellow of the dark city, the title here, Dark City, and the yellow star is very good. You have the cohesiveness. This connects it all the way down to the title as well. So in addition to the light bulb drawing your eye down to the text, these stars kind of bring you right down to the message. And even if you kind of wander up here and you're looking at these stars again, guess what? It brings you right back down. And that's exactly what design is, graphic design. You're trying to convey a message, and in this sense, you're conveying the information about this project. So here is my secret question for today. For those of you that saw yesterday, I'm going to do secret questions during my live sessions just to make sure that you're watching them. And if you shoot me a message and let me know what the answer to the secret question was, you can get either a 2-day extension on an individual assignment without a late deduction, or 5 extra points on an assignment at some point. So today's question is, what breed of dog do I have? And every time I look at this picture, it makes me laugh because he looks like Fozzie. Well, this is my dog, Chewy, Chewbacca, Millennium Falcon, Kinney, and he is a standard poodle. He doesn't usually look like this. He's usually more shaggy like this, but he had just come from the groomer that day. So we are going to do our demo now. We have almost a half an hour, so that should be good enough. So let us get going. I bring back up. Oh, it's because I was wondering why I couldn't find that. So we're going to go to your assignments for the week. And the assignment for this week, oh, thank you very much. I think he's cute too. So we're going to be making some flashcards this week with information of design errors on them. We're going to be doing 3 flashcards, double-sided, 5 by 7. And Although in industry standard, 5 by 7 is typically 5 wide by 7 tall. This particular assignment says you can do either portrait or landscape, so it doesn't matter. However you want to do it is absolutely fine. So the information you're going to take is all of this information right here. Excuse me, I'm double clicking there. This is the information that you're going to be researching. First thing you're going to do is you're going to download this document and place it in here. This is going to be your assignment information. As window up, and it opened up on my other screen. That's really the only drawback to having double monitors here. So we have 10 different graphic design eras. You only have to pick 3. Any 3 that you want. I typically try to say, you know, pick something that is going to be interesting to you or that you want to learn a little bit more about. Makes the research go by a little bit faster. And here are some sample links for some resources that you can use. You can absolutely look elsewhere as well, as long as we are crediting our resources. But you're going to do a little, oh, I keep clicking on that. You're going to do a little bit of research on a particular style. This particular website, I don't believe it has all of them, but it's got a few of them. For example, there you go. And it brings you right down. So you're going to be including the name of the era, a general date or time frame of the era, a picture that is an example of the era. And again, you can use the resources in that link, but if I wanted to, for example, pick Art Nouveau, I can very easily Art Nouveau graphic design, and you know what, we'll do that today. That'll be our style that we're going to be working with here. And I'm going to work with, I think, this one right here. So I'm going to, oh, did I just see Rogue? That's awesome. For fellow nerds out there, that I believe, I could be, I might need to be corrected, but I believe that that's Rogue of the X-Men. Oh yes, here we go, Rogue, perfect. I love her. Okay, so we got Art Nouveau right here. It provides a little bit of information, and I'm actually going to save this. And you know what I'm actually going to do? I'm actually going to share my screen the other way so that I am on the correct thing, because I have all of my tools over here, and I don't want to accidentally lose you guys. Julia, can you see InDesign now over there with the blue and the brown and the black? Okay, just wanted to make sure it's shared correctly. Okay, so I've got my image. Now I'm going to create my document, and since we don't need this anymore, get rid of that. And my husband was on my InDesign earlier. So I've got a new document. And let me see, I think the image I just grabbed was taller than it was wide. So I'm actually going to do this portrait. Make sure to change your units here. So 7 by 5. And there we go. Your layout may be slightly different. This is 2019 InDesign. Whoops. Oh, shoot. There we go. However, I have my workspace set up because I use it very frequently. Don't freak out if yours looks a little different. You can customize yours however you'd like. And I'm also actually going to get rid of my margins here because I don't want them actually, I'm not going to get rid of them. I'm just going to shrink them down, I think. 0.2 by 0.2, and I went into there by layout and margins. Okay. So now I'm going to import my image. Or place it, I suppose. I have a hard time sometimes when I'm not using keystrokes. And this is in my Independence University folder. Go. Week 1. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, there we go. No, actually, that's not it. Ooh, that's Rachel's schedule for this week. So let me actually grab it from over here. I'm over on my other screen right now, so don't worry if you can't see anything. That's not a problem. I just know it's going to take me a lot less time to do it this way. You wouldn't think so by how long it's taking. Here we go. There we go. I just needed to go through one more. Oh, for crying out loud, that's not right either. Save. Oh, there we go. I got it. I got it. I got it. I got it. Goodness gracious. And I actually, this is perfect because I made a mistake. So now I can show you guys how to fix it. I did width 7 inches wide and height 5 inches wide. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to do 5 by 7. There we go. That's much better. So I'm going to place my image in there, and I'm going to use the text tool to get a text box going. Just put a little bit of text in there to hold it there. And what I like to try to do is go back to the assignment and copy and paste the information so that I don't forget anything. Okay, so now from here, you can lay it out however you'd like. I think I'm going to, oh goodness, we're doing Art Deco. That's what, oh no, excuse me, Art Nouveau. So I'm actually going to go look up some fonts. And this is one of the 2 resources that I really like. This is DeFont. This is my favorite. If I haven't put them up in the announcements, I will be doing that in the next day or so. And this is Adobe font. And there are so many free fonts out there, so don't pay anything for them because that's just ridiculous. And you can look in here for particular kinds of fonts by category. You can do them, you know, if you have something specific that you are looking for that begins with the letter A, you can look at it that way. So we're going to take a look here real quick. And this is part of the arts and, excuse me, the first was called the Arts and Crafts Movement. That was the first of the 2 movements in that century. So it became into, or became part of, the Art Nouveau. And let me see, I'm trying to think of a way to describe this particular font style. Let's go Modern Gothic. That might be, that's not really what I'm looking for. That's a little too modern. That's almost like digital or something. Let's go medieval. See, and that's too scripty. So let's go maybe, sometimes it does take a little bit to kind of find what you're looking for. But by going through, oh, you know what? I know that I have a font that looks just like that, so that's actually what I'm going to go with. You know, sometimes, like I said, it might take a few minutes to kind of find what you're looking for. Sometimes you can kind of, oh, actually, I like that one. You can kind of get lost in it, but every once in a while you'll find something really, really cool. So I'm actually downloading this one called Cardinal, and I'm extracting it because I'm on a PC. I'm not unpackaging anything. Just going to take a second. There we go. And now I am installing it. Oh, no, I'm not, because that's the wrong folder. Install. Okay. So now, like I said, you can design your cards however you want. You can use different fonts. You can use different colors. Try to keep the design principles in mind. So I'm actually going to use this Cardinal one. I'm going to make it a little bit bigger so you can read it. It's a little bit too big. There we go. And so I'm going to use some contrast here by making the titles here. Oh goodness, and that's even actually a little bit too, that's too fancy. I can't read that. And these are the kinds of problems that you might encounter as you are working on, oh, that's a little bit too much, as you're working on designing your card. So you might need to kind of play around with it. And see, now there we go, that's better. Okay, so I'm actually going to, there we go. Come on, you. There we go, Art Nouveau. I'm going to keep the paragraph copy or the text copy a little bit easier to read. I'm actually going to make that a sans serif font because we have this really fancy thingy up here. And let's go, yeah, that's fine. So that's how I think I would want to lay mine out. I'm going to use my eyedropper tool to grab this guy right here. Oof! So you know what ends up happening is now I don't have enough room. Again, this is the kind of stuff that you will, or the kind of problems that you might find as you are designing your piece. So there we go. Oh, yeah, creator, design piece, if applicable. See, now I actually am going to need to shrink this down a little bit because I'm not going to be able to fit everything. Okay. There we go. That's a little bit better. And, you know, I'm actually also going to, this is the horizontal scaling. That's going to squish that in a little bit. So just kind of, you know, have some fun with it. Try to play around with some of the different tools in here. Let me see, that one's 25, that one's too small, excuse me, too big. It's also kind of difficult for us as instructors when we do these demos because I would love to spend an hour doing this, but you know, I don't have that much time. And I don't want to bore you guys either. So I'm gonna try to change the leading a little bit. There we go. That's a little bit better. See, now as I'm doing this, I'm actually kind of fitting things in a little bit better. There we go. And you know, you don't even need to keep it all together like this either. You can, let's maybe put it up here. And I'm going to maybe just use that text for Art Nouveau. Yeah, let's do that instead, actually. I like that. We'll make that a little bit bigger. Maybe make this a little bit smaller. Oops, I grabbed the wrong tool. Okay, maybe I add a little effect to it so you can actually see it, because right now the black is a little bit hard to read. Here's my effects docker. There we go. Let's go outer glow. And there we go. And I'm just kind of randomly picking these numbers here, so don't worry about, you know, remembering what we've got going on there. So yeah, so actually I like that a little bit better. And general time frame, maybe I would put it over here. This is not the dates, but I'm just trying to kind of give you guys some info on how to get this going. I don't like that. I don't know that I really like this one either, but it's better than nothing. Oh, or maybe we'll put it over here. No, I don't like that either. Because you know what, this information really should go up here, right near the title. But you see how I'm kind of just playing around with it here, trying to figure out what's going to work best. And that's exactly what you're going to do in these assignments in this class. Okay, and maybe make that Franklin Gothic bold instead. Oh, it's not going to give me that option. There we go. That's what I want. There we go. That's much better. Okay. So then I would probably use this text to, you know, write out the, I think it was called Mucha, I think is what it said, to, you know, put the information down in an interesting and aesthetic way. Again, keeping in mind the contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. And right here you would be putting in a little bit of information about the era. Obviously, don't do that. But, you know, just trying to give you guys an idea of how it would lay out. Oops. Oh, that reminds me, I haven't saved this yet. That's huge. Make sure that you save it before you get too far into it, because it would suck if you lost it. Here is the file name and convention that we need you guys to sign in so I can easily find it. Okay, I'm just going to put this on my desktop for now so I don't waste time. Assignment 1. Actually, there we go. Sorry, I started deleting things. Melissa Kinney. Boom. Okay, there we go. Now, before we actually also finish up for today, this is just going to be the first part of your first part of the card. We also need another page, and that's going to be the back. I'm just going to take this stuff right here so I have it on the same page here. And here we're going to actually make a color palette. So I'm going to put together just a few images here. And I am going to select some colors from my image that are representative of the era. Okay, well, let's see. Let's do this like greeny color, if I can get it. There we go. That's a good one. Come on. Oh, dear God. It's because it's not selected. No wonder I was having a hard time. Oh, jeepers crow. I am having a very hard time here. You know what you can also do is actually use the color theme tool and select that, and boom, look at that. We have all of these awesome things. You can actually do that and then add that to your swatches. Sometimes that's a little easier. I probably should have just done that to begin with. Okay, but I did kind of want that greenish, so I'm just going to actually make it kind of. There we go, because it wanted, there we go, that's a little bit better. Okay, so I'm actually, there we go, I'm going to use those. And I'm going to somehow arrange them in what I consider to be an aesthetic manner. And I actually don't like that. I'm going to make this a little different. Just because. Just because. And try not to use your outline strokes. If you noticed, I actually took off the black stroke that was on there because the color palette will work, well, it'll show a little bit better if you're not using the outlines as well. I mean, essentially what that means, it's that can be distracting to the color palette itself. Black is in here a little bit, I suppose, so we could use black, but using that as a stroke, it's not going to, you're not going to be able to focus on the actual colors. You're going to be focusing on the shape more. There we go. That's, yeah. You know, because I'm just trying to do something a little different. Oh, see, now that just looks like a mustache. Try that again. There we go. That's a little bit better. But even now, I feel like I'm missing something here. Let's go. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. Okay, so here we have just a few. There we go. Just kind of some examples of the colors back there. I'm going to go back to where I actually got my, oopsie, cancel. What on earth? Oh, you know what? I accidentally closed it. So I'm going to go back to, excuse me, the website. I've copied it, and it is on the back here that you're actually going to put any of your references. Okay, and try to place them in a manner that you are keeping in mind your design principles. So actually, yeah, let's make this a little bit wider. Okay. And if you use multiple resources, just make sure to stick them all on there so we know where you're getting them. Okay. And you're going to do this 3 times. You're going to have a front and a back for 3 different eras. And you're going to be submitting that as a PDF. So after you are done, you're going to go File, Export, excuse me, PDF. Make sure this says All. Okay, and when that's done, you should have a PDF that opens. My computer's running awfully slow because I could see it was thinking. Oh, while that decides it, oh, there we go. Oh, Acrobat's just being really difficult for me right now. So while that decides it wants to actually work, we'll go back to the assignment real quick. So like I said, save it with the file name and export your file as a PDF. Here are 2, these are also on the assignment page. These are benchmarks, these are examples of previous students and what they've done. So here you have a nice, clean, straight color palette. This particular student decided to go landscape. Kind of an interesting palette here, you know, very similar to the one that we've got going over here with the squares. This particular one was all portrait. They used little dots, so that's even a cleaner version of the palette. If we go back to this other one, here we have a psychedelic one, and you see this particular person. The first person did a lot of sans serif fonts, which is fine. This person decided to get a little, you know, decorative and use some fonts that were typical, and their color palette obviously is indicative of the psychedelic era. Okay, so here, if you need, you know, more references, you can absolutely take a look there. And then below the assignment, each one of the assignments, you're going to find this. There's your rubric. So this is how we base our grading. So if there's anything that you are confused about as to what you should be including, or you want to make sure that you don't miss anything, go right by the rubric, and you know, you can mentally check off what you've got going on here. Okay, now we only have a couple minutes left, and since I'm not supposed to do a step-by-step of the assessment, I can just go over it very quickly. The assessment for this week is a quiz. Excuse me. And let me actually, okay. So after you've done your readings and your videos, it says the assessment's based on the required reading in the course media, look, I just mentioned, and the live sessions here, as well as the pre-recorded lecture. Okay, you take your quiz, and it asks you a couple different questions. Okay, the left edges of these rectangles are all lined up. Which design principle is an example of? Okay, so these are just sample questions that of kinds of things that you might get asked. And if you, again, have any questions, you can feel free to ask me. I can point you to the right right resource, or I can clarify things for you guys. And I think that is it. I went over the fonts here. Let me actually just make sure, yes, I want to navigate. I just want to make sure that if there's anything I need to point out in the announcements, I don't think they are. Oh, for anybody that wasn't able to watch last night, here is actually a link, excuse me, for if you are having issues with internet connectivity, you're finding it's not really reliable, you can, once you know that you have connectivity, you can actually download the lectures so you can watch them when you're not connected to the internet. Here's a little video to show you how to do that. And it does not look like I have the announcement up for the fonts just yet, the font resources, so I'll make sure to get up that one as well. So, Julia, do you have any questions before we go for today? Okay, so great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with this week. I am going to jump on the discussion board right now and do a couple of posts. And I very much look forward to being able to get a critique going next Monday. Again, if you are not interested in having me critique your work, just let me know, shoot me a message, and I will make sure that I keep yours out of the loop. I do not use names, just to reiterate, but very much looking forward to our next session. And anybody that needs any help, come see me on Thursdays during the multi-session. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and have a good day.